I almost canceled the blind date 3 times. That's probably the most honest way to start this. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, rereading the last message from my friend Mark. Trust me, he's your type. Just go. Whenever someone says your type, it usually means one of two things: either painfully awkward or painfully hot and completely out of my league. I wasn't sure I had the emotional stamina for either, but I've been single for 8 months. 8 long, quiet, I'm totally fine being alone months. Which, for the record, is a lie you only believe until you're eating takeout alone on a Friday night for the 4th week in a row. So I went. The date was set at a small wine bar downtown. Dim lighting, exposed brick, soft music, the kind of place that tries very hard to look accidental. I got there 10 minutes early because I'm that guy. The anxious one who prefers waiting over walking into someone already sitting there. I checked my reflection in the dark window. Navy button-up, dark jeans, clean sneakers, casual but intentional. I didn't want to look like I tried too hard. I was halfway through convincing myself to order a drink and pretend I got stood up when the door opened. And my entire body went cold. Because walking in wasn't a stranger. It was Charles. I swear my brain short-circuited. Of all the men in this city, of all the possible blind dates, it was him. Charles stood there scanning the room, pushing his hand through his slightly messy brown hair the way he always used to when he was nervous. He looked older, broader shoulders, more confident, but it was definitely him. We locked eyes at the exact same time. His expression shifted from polite anticipation to pure disbelief. "Thomas," he said, half laughing, half stunned. "You know that feeling when your stomach drops, but also flips at the same time? That." "Charles," I managed. For a second, neither of us moved. It felt like we were stuck in some weird glitch in reality. Because Charles wasn't just some random guy I vaguely knew. He was my ex. Not just a casual ex. Not a "we dated for 3 months and it fizzled." No, Charles was my first real relationship. 2 years. College. Late-night study sessions that turned into sleepovers. Road trips. Meeting families. And then a breakup that was messy. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just slow and painful. The kind where you both love each other, but keep hurting each other anyway. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. And now we were standing in the same wine bar, apparently set up on a blind date. He let out a disbelieving breath. "You've got to be kidding me." I couldn't help it. I started laughing. Not because it was funny. Because it was so absurd I didn't know what else to do. "Mark set me up," I said. "Ethan set me up," he shot back. We stared at each other. "Wait," he said slowly. "Are Mark and Ethan still working together?" Oh. Oh no. It clicked at the same time for both of us. "They planned this," we said in unison. And just like that, the tension cracked a little. Charles shook his head, smiling in that familiar way that used to make me forget what I was saying mid-sentence. "I can't believe they did this." "Honestly," I said, "I'm not even surprised." He hesitated. "So do we run?" That question hung between us. Because we could have. It would have been easy. Laugh it off, send an angry text to our mutual friends, and go home. But I didn't move. And neither did he. I studied him properly for the first time since he walked in. He looked good. Different. More settled somehow. He was wearing a dark green sweater that fit him unfairly well, sleeves slightly pushed up, exposing his forearms. I hated that I noticed that. "You look," he started, then stopped. "What?" I asked. He exhaled. "Good. You look good." There it was. That softness in his voice I hadn't heard in a year. "Thanks," I said quietly. "You too." The hostess appeared beside us like she'd been summoned by unresolved romantic tension. "Table for two." We both hesitated. Then Charles looked at me and gave a small shrug. "I mean, we're already here." He wasn't wrong. So I nodded. "Yeah, table for two." And just like that, we were walking side by side to a small corner table, like we hadn't once promised never to do this again. We sat across from each other. It felt strange. Familiar but distant. Like revisiting your childhood home after someone else has redecorated. "So," he said, folding his hands on the table. "A blind date. With my ex," I added. He smirked. "That's one way to spice things up." I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the small smile tugging at my mouth. A waiter came by. We ordered wine. Red. We used to argue about wine because I preferred white, and he insisted red was superior. Tonight, I didn't fight him. Silence settled for a moment after the waiter left. Not awkward exactly. Just heavy with everything unsaid. "How have you been?" he asked finally. It was such a simple question, and yet it felt loaded. Good, I said automatically. He gave me a look. I sighed. Okay, not always good, but better than I was. He nodded slowly. Same. There was something in the way he said it. Like he meant it. I didn't know you were seeing anyone, he added carefully. I'm not, I said. That's kind of the point of a blind date. He huffed a quiet laugh. Right. What about you? He shook his head. No. Tried. Didn't stick. I tried not to read into that. Failed. The wine arrived. We both took a sip like we needed something to do with our hands. This is insane, I muttered. Yeah, he agreed. But also, kind of poetic? I raised an eyebrow. Poetic. He leaned back slightly, studying me. Two idiots who couldn't figure it out the first time get tricked into sitting across from each other again. My chest tightened. You think that's what we were? I asked softly. Idiots. He held my gaze. I think we were young. That hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. We met at 19. We didn't know how to communicate. We didn't know how to handle jealousy or ambition or the fear of growing apart. We just reacted. Defended. Withdrew. I hated how we ended, he said quietly. I know. No, he shook his head. I mean, I really hated it. I swallowed. Because so did I. For a second, I saw a flash of the last night we were together. Raised voices. Me saying I needed space. Him saying space always turns into goodbye. He wasn't wrong about that either. You never called, he said. You never did either. I shot back automatically. There it was. The old rhythm. Defensive but honest. He nodded once. Fair. The tension crept back in, but it wasn't explosive. It was alive. I leaned forward slightly. Can I ask you something? Yeah. If this wasn't a setup, if we'd just randomly run into each other tonight, would you have said hi? He didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his glass, then back at me. Yeah, he said finally. I would have. My heart did something stupid in my chest. Would you, he asked. I held his gaze. Yeah, I admitted. I think I would have. And in that moment, sitting in that dimly lit wine bar across from the man I once thought I'd marry, I realized something terrifying. This didn't feel like closure. It felt like a beginning. And that scared me more than anything. I wish I could say the rest of that night was calm and mature and emotionally responsible. It wasn't. It was careful. Too careful. After that, would you have said hi? Moment. Something shifted. The conversation stopped feeling like two exes revisiting a post-mortem and started feeling like two men trying very hard not to stare at the fact that the chemistry never actually died. We ordered food. Neither of us was really hungry. So, Charles said, resting his elbows lightly on the table. Are you still at the same firm? Yeah. Got promoted, actually. His eyebrows lifted, genuine surprise flickering across his face. Seriously? Thomas, that's huge. I try to play it cool, but hearing him say my name like that, proud, warm, it did something to me. Yeah, it's good. Busy, but good. I always knew you'd get there, he said quietly. That caught me off guard. You did. He gave me a small look. You forget I was there for the all-nighters. The breakdowns. I'm not cut out for this speeches. I let out a breathy laugh. God, I was dramatic. You were passionate, he corrected gently. That was new. Old Charles would have teased me. Poked at the insecurity. Not cruelly, but carelessly. This version felt steadier. What about you? I asked. Last I heard you were thinking about switching cities. Thought about it, he said. Even interviewed in Chicago. And he shrugged. Didn't go. Why not? His jaw shifted slightly. Didn't feel right. I don't know why that answer stuck with me the way it did. The waiter refilled our glasses. The restaurant had gotten louder around us, but it felt like we were in a bubble. You look different, I said before I could stop myself. He tilted his head. Different how? Calmer, I admitted. Less defensive. He actually smiled at that. Therapy. I blinked. Seriously? Yeah, he said. Started about 4 months after we broke up. My chest tightened. I should have gone sooner, he added. Probably would have saved us a lot of damage. The honesty in his voice made my stomach twist. I wasn't exactly easy either, I said. He leaned forward slightly. You weren't the problem, Thomas. That's not true. You shutting down wasn't random, he said carefully. I pushed. I needed constant reassurance. I made everything feel like a test. I stared at him. Because this was the conversation we never had. Back then, we just blamed each other and retreated. You made me feel like if I didn't choose you every second, I was losing you, I admitted quietly. He didn't argue. I know, he said. That silence between us wasn't heavy this time. It was real. For the first time since we sat down, I felt my shoulders relax. Can I ask something kind of selfish? He said after a moment. When have you ever not? I teased. There it was again, that spark. He rolled his eyes but smiled. Did you ever regret it? Regret what? Ending it. That question hit straight in the chest. I didn't answer immediately. The honest answer? Yes. 100 times. In random grocery store aisles. On lonely Sunday mornings. When something good happened, and he wasn't the first person I called. But I also remembered the exhaustion. The constant walking on eggshells. Sometimes, I said finally. But I also knew we couldn't keep going the way we were. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Do you regret it? I asked. His gaze held mine longer than usual. I regret how we ended, he said. Not that we needed to end. That was specific. I swallowed. The food came. We barely touched it. There was this undercurrent now. Something unspoken but electric. At one point, our hands brushed when we both reached for the water. It was the smallest thing, but it felt like being hit by a memory. His hand was warm. Familiar. We both froze for half a second too long. Sorry, he murmured. It's fine, I said quickly. But neither of us moved our hands immediately. That's when I knew we were in dangerous territory. After dinner, we stepped outside. The air was cool. The streetlights cast everything in soft gold. So, he said, shoving his hands into his pockets. Do we text our friends and yell at them? I huffed. Oh, they're getting an earful. He laughed. God, I missed that sound. We stood there awkwardly for a second. This was usually the part of a date where you decide. Hug, handshake, kiss, polite goodbye. Except this wasn't a first date. It was something messier. I'm glad I came, he said quietly. I looked up at him. Even though it's you? I teased. Especially because it's you. That did it. The space between us suddenly felt very small. You're dangerous, you know that? I muttered. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because you're saying all the right things. He stepped half a pace closer. I'm not trying to, he said softly. I'm just not pretending anymore. My heart was beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. Charles, I warned gently. What? You remember how this goes. He studied my face. I do, he said. But I also know how it feels to lose you. That landed. Hard. A car passed. Someone laughed across the street. The world kept moving like this wasn't a pivotal moment in my life. I'm not the same as I was, he said quietly. I know, I replied. And neither are you. That was true. We weren't 19 anymore. We'd both been alone. Both been humbled. The tension wasn't toxic this time. It was cautious. Intentional. He reached out slowly, like he was giving me time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair off my forehead. My breath caught. That tiny, intimate gesture almost undid me. You're still terrible at styling this, he murmured. I laughed despite myself. Shut up. His hand lingered for half a second too long. Tell me to walk away, he said quietly. And I realized he meant it. If I said it, he would. If I didn't. I searched his face. The familiar freckles near his cheekbone. The tiny scar on his chin from a college soccer game. All the details my body still remembered. I don't want you to, I admitted. There it was. The line crossed. His jaw tightened slightly, not in tension, but in restraint. Okay, he said softly. Neither of us kissed. Not yet. But the air between us felt like it was one breath away from it. And for the first time in a year, I wasn't thinking about how we broke. I was thinking about what would happen if we tried again, and whether we were brave enough to do it differently this time. Tell me to walk away. I don't think he realized how unfair that was. Because if I told him to walk away, I'd spend the entire night wondering what would have happened if I hadn't. And if I didn't, well, we were already standing too close. Close enough that I could feel the warmth from his body in the cool night air. I don't want you to, I had said. The moment the words left my mouth, everything shifted. Not dramatically, not explosively, just undeniably. Charles didn't rush it. That's what scared me most. He didn't grab me, didn't push, didn't even smirk like he'd won something. He just studied my face like he was making sure I understood what I was choosing. Okay, he said softly. And then there was silence. The kind that hums. My brain was screaming at me to slow down, to think, to remember how this ended last time. But my body remembered something else entirely. Are you free tomorrow? He asked. That caught me off guard. Tomorrow? Yeah, he said. Coffee. Middle of the day. Public place. No impulsive decisions. I let out a quiet breath. You're negotiating terms? I'm trying not to ruin this in the first 24 hours, he said honestly. That made my chest ache. You think this is something? I asked carefully. His jaw flexed. I think if we just kissed right now and pretended the last year didn't happen, we'd fall into the same pattern. He wasn't wrong. And I don't want that, he added. Not with you. The vulnerability in that sentence hit harder than if he'd pulled me into him. Coffee, I said slowly. Coffee, he confirmed. We both knew it was more than coffee. It was a decision to try intentionally instead of reactively. But that didn't make walking away easier. So we're being adults about this? I asked. He smirked faintly. Terrifying, right? Very. Another beat of silence. Then he did something that almost undid all my resolve. He stepped in, slowly, and wrapped his arms around me. Not possessive, not urgent, just familiar. And I froze for half a second before melting into it. God, I forgot how perfectly he fit. His chin rested lightly near my temple. My hands hovered awkwardly at first, then slid around his waist like muscle memory took over. This wasn't a kiss, but it felt more intimate than one. I missed this, he admitted quietly against my hair. My throat tightened. Don't say things like that, I murmured. Why? Because I might believe you. He pulled back just enough to look at me. I do mean it, he said. And I believed him. That was the dangerous part. We separated slowly, like neither of us fully wanted to. Text me, he said. I will. He hesitated, then added, Thomas? Yeah. I'm not here to hurt you again. My heart did that stupid, hopeful thing it shouldn't. I know, I said. And for the first time, I actually meant it. The second I got in my car, my phone buzzed. Mark. So? I laughed out loud. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there for a minute, staring at the steering wheel. Because this didn't feel like a random reunion. It felt intentional. Terrifyingly intentional. Finally, I typed back. Me. You're dead. 3 dots appeared immediately. Mark. You're welcome. I rolled my eyes but couldn't stop smiling. When I got home, I didn't turn on the TV. Didn't distract myself. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Everything replayed in slow motion. The way he said he went to therapy. The way he didn't blame me. The way he asked for coffee instead of a kiss. Old Charles would have kissed me. New Charles asked to try. That difference mattered. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. My stomach flipped. Unknown. Just making sure you got home safe. I smiled before I could stop myself. Me. I did. You. A few seconds. Charles. Yeah. Pause. Then another message. Charles. Still thinking about that hug. I stared at the screen for a full 10. I stared at that message for a solid 30 seconds. Still thinking about that hug. There are certain sentences that shouldn't hit as hard as they do. That was one of them. Because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't flirty in an obvious way. It was just honest. And honesty from Charles used to terrify me. I typed something. Deleted it. Typed again. Me. It was a good hug. Safe. Neutral. Mature. He responded almost immediately. Charles. It was. Pause. Then. Charles. I forgot how calm I feel around you. That one got me. Because calm wasn't the word I would have used to describe us a year ago. We were intense. Passionate. Reactive. Calm was new. I exhaled slowly before replying. Me. Let's see if coffee still feels calm. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. Charles. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The place on 8th we used to argue about. I couldn't help smiling. The place on 8th was a small cafe we'd gone to constantly during college. It had terrible seating, but incredible espresso. We used to sit by the window and debate everything from career plans to whether long distance ever works. We broke up 3 months after one of those conversations. Me. 2 p.m. works. A second later. Charles. Okay. And that was it. No late-night emotional spiral. No I miss you confessions. Just okay. The next day, I spent an embarrassing amount of time picking out a shirt. It's ridiculous how someone you've already dated can still make you feel like you're going on a first date. Because that's what this felt like. Not a reunion. A reset. By 1:45, I was already outside the cafe, pretending not to check my phone every 30 seconds. At 1:58, he walked up, and I swear my body recognized him before my brain did. He wasn't wearing anything special. Just jeans, a fitted gray t-shirt, and that same easy confidence. But there was something different in the way he carried himself. Less restless. More grounded. Hey, he said, stopping in front of me. Hey. There was a brief, almost awkward pause. Then he opened the door for me. Small gesture. New behavior. Inside, it smelled like espresso and cinnamon. We ordered separately, which felt weirdly symbolic. We used to always order for each other. He got a black coffee. I got an iced latte. Some things don't change. We found a small table near the back. So, I said, wrapping my hands around the cold cup, adult coffee. He smiled faintly. Adult coffee. There was nervous energy between us, but it wasn't suffocating. It felt like anticipation. I thought about what you asked last night, he said. Which part? If I would have said hi. I leaned back slightly, and he studied me for a second before answering. I think I would have been scared, he admitted. But yeah, I would have. Scared of what? Of realizing I still feel something. There it was, out in the open. I didn't look away this time. Do you? I asked quietly. He didn't hesitate. Yes. No dramatics. No qualifiers. Just yes. My heart started pounding again, but I forced myself to stay steady. This can't just be nostalgia, I said. We both know how easy that is. I know, he nodded. That's why I didn't kiss you. The fact that he brought that up unprompted made my stomach flip. You wanted to, I said before I could stop myself. A corner of his mouth lifted. Very much. Heat crawled up my neck. But wanting to and doing it are different, he continued. Last time, we let wanting drive everything. He wasn't wrong. We rushed milestones. We escalated arguments. We made decisions based on fear of losing each other instead of trust and staying. I don't want to repeat that, he said. Neither do I. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the table. Can I ask you something? Yeah. When we broke up, did you think that was it? Like, permanently? I thought about that for a second. Yes, I admitted. I told myself it had to be. Otherwise, I wouldn't move on. And did you? The question hung there. I could lie. But what would be the point now? I tried, I said. I went on dates. I met good guys. And I compared them to you. His eyes softened. That's not fair to them, he murmured. I know. Silence settled again, but this one felt heavier. Why didn't you reach out? He asked quietly. There it was. The real question. I almost did, I said. A lot. Then why didn't you? Because I didn't trust us, I admitted. I didn't trust that we wouldn't just hurt each other again. He nodded slowly. That's fair. And you? I asked. He let out a small breath. Pride, he said. And fear. Of what? That you'd say no. That hit harder than I expected. You think I would have? I didn't want to find out. For a moment, I saw it clearly. Two stubborn, scared guys who loved each other but didn't know how to fix themselves first. We weren't doomed. We were immature. I'm not that version of me anymore, he said softly. I know, I replied. And I don't want the old version of you either, he added. I blinked. Excuse me. He smirked faintly. You shut down instead of talking. I rolled my eyes. You panicked instead of listening. He nodded. Exactly. We both smiled. It felt lighter now. Real. So what are we doing? I asked finally. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached across the table, slowly, and placed his hand over mine. Not gripping. Not claiming. Just resting there. I think, he said carefully, we're seeing if the people we are now fit better than the people we were. My pulse spiked at the contact, but I didn't pull away. And if we don't? I asked. Then at least we'll know we tried as ourselves, he said. That answer felt solid. Not romantic fantasy. Not desperation. Choice. I squeezed his hand once before letting go. Okay, I said. Okay, he echoed. Okay. We try. Something warm flashed across his face. Relief. Hope. Maybe both. But there was still something unspoken. Because trying meant risk. And I wasn't naive enough to ignore that. As we stood to leave the cafe, he walked beside me again. Close enough that our arms brushed. This time, neither of us pretended not to notice. Outside, the afternoon sun hit us full in the face. So, he said, turning slightly toward me. Dinner next time? I raised an eyebrow. Already planning the next one? I'm optimistic. I stepped a little closer without thinking. Careful, I murmured. I might start believing you're serious. He looked down at me, expression steady. I am serious. And for the first time since this all started. I believe that too. But trying again meant opening doors we had slammed shut. And I had no idea what would happen when the past inevitably knocked. Trying sounds simple when you say it out loud. It's not. Trying means you don't get to hide behind history anymore. You don't get to blame who we used to be. You have to show up as you are now. And that's a lot scarier. Dinner was 3 nights later. We agreed. very intentionally, not to text constantly in between. No slipping into old habits of all-day conversations that blur boundaries. But we did text. Just enough. Charles. How's work? Me. Survived. You. Charles. Missed you for like 3 seconds when something funny happened. 3 seconds. That line lived in my head for hours. Not, I miss you constantly. Not overwhelming. Just honest. Dinner was at a small Italian place. Not overly romantic. Not casual either. Neutral ground. When I walked in and saw him already there, something inside me settled. This didn't feel chaotic. It felt intentional. You're early, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. You're late, he shot back. I'm 2 minutes late. Unacceptable. I rolled my eyes, smiling. The waiter came. We ordered. Wine again. Red again. We were more relaxed this time. The nervous edge had softened into something steadier. But steady doesn't mean simple. Halfway through dinner, he asked, did you tell anyone? About us trying? Yeah. I shook my head. Not yet. Why not? I hesitated. Because once I say it out loud, it becomes real. He nodded slowly. I told Ethan, he admitted. I raised an eyebrow. Of course you did. He threatened me if I messed this up. That sounds accurate. He leaned back slightly. He said if I lose you twice, it's on me. The way he said it, like he believed that, made my chest tighten. Is it? I asked quietly. He didn't dodge. Partially, he said. Last time, I pushed you into corners instead of standing next to you. That level of accountability still felt new. And I disappeared instead of explaining what I needed. I said. We weren't keeping score anymore. That mattered. After dinner, we walked. Not holding hands. Not touching. Just walking side by side under streetlights like two people relearning each other. You seem lighter, he said at one point. Lighter. Less guarded. I glanced at him. You seem less reactive. He laughed softly. Therapy, remember? I might need your therapist's number. He looked at me sideways. You're not broken, Thomas. I know, I said. But I think I was scared of being too much for you. He stopped walking. I took 2 steps before realizing he wasn't beside me anymore. When I turned back, his expression had shifted. Too much, he repeated. Yeah. Thomas, he said carefully, stepping closer. You were never too much. I just didn't know how to hold space for you. That sentence hit somewhere deep. Because for a long time, I thought loving me meant enduring me. You don't have to manage me, I said quietly. I know, he replied. I want to meet you. That was different. Managing feels like control. Meeting feels like partnership. We stood there for a moment, the city noise around us fading into the background. Can I ask something harder? He said. Define harder. If this works, what does that look like to you? That question scared me more than anything so far. Because it wasn't about tonight. It was about future. I don't want to move too fast, I said carefully. But I also don't want to pretend this is casual. He nodded once. I don't do casual with you, he said. My pulse kicked up. And I don't want to relive the intensity that burned us out. I added. So steady, he summarized. Steady, I agreed. He studied me like he was memorizing the moment. Okay, he said. Okay. Such a simple word for something that felt this big. The first kiss didn't happen that night. And I think that's why it mattered when it finally did. It was a week later. We were at my apartment. First time we'd been alone inside a space that wasn't neutral territory. That alone felt charged. He stood in my living room, hands in his pockets, looking around like he'd never been there before. You rearranged, he said. Yeah. Feels more you. I shrugged. I changed. He stepped closer. I can see that. We were close enough now that the air felt thick again. But this time, there wasn't panic. There wasn't urgency. There was choice. I've wanted to kiss you since the wine bar, he admitted softly. I know, I said. You do? I felt it. His hand lifted slowly, resting against my jaw. He paused there. Waiting. That's what made it different. Not taking. Waiting. I leaned in first. And when our lips finally met, it wasn't explosive. It was deep. Familiar. Slow. Like we were testing whether the spark was still there. It was. But it wasn't wildfire anymore. It was controlled heat. His other hand slid to my waist. Mine gripped his shirt lightly. When we pulled back, neither of us spoke for a second. Still good? He asked quietly. Yeah, I breathed. He pressed his forehead against mine. We don't rush, he murmured. We don't rush, I echoed. And for once, that didn't feel like restraint. It felt like strength. But as steady as we were trying to be. You can't rewrite history without confronting it. And 2 weeks into trying, The past finally showed up in a way I didn't expect, and it forced us to answer whether we were actually different or just pretending to be. The past showed up on a Thursday night. Of course it did. Charles and I had been in this careful, steady rhythm for 2 weeks. Dinner, walks, a movie night that ended with us tangled on my couch, but still fully clothed because we don't rush, remember? It felt good. Scary, but good. Then I made the mistake of going to a mutual friend's birthday. I didn't even think twice about it. It was just a small get-together at a rooftop bar. I assumed Charles would come too, but he had a late work deadline. Go, he told me over the phone. You don't need supervision. I don't need supervision, I shot back. He laughed softly. Text me when you get home. That warmth in his voice still got me. So I went. Everything was normal for the first hour. Drinks, music, loud laughter. Then I turned around at the bar, and there he was. Daniel, the guy I dated briefly about 4 months after Charles and I broke up. Not serious, not dramatic, but intense. And it didn't end well. Daniel spotted me immediately. Thomas, he said, smiling like nothing complicated had ever happened between us. My stomach tightened. Hey, we did the polite half-hug thing, the one that pretends history doesn't exist. You look good, he said, eyes scanning me in a way that felt too familiar. Thanks. So, he added casually, you still single? And that's when I hesitated. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because saying it out loud still felt new. I'm seeing someone. His eyebrows lifted. Oh, yeah. Serious? I swallowed. Potentially. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Is it the ex? That caught me off guard. You hurt? He shrugged. You two were kind of legendary. Legendary. That's one word for it. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, it's Charles. Daniel let out a soft laugh. Wow. Round 2. Something about the tone bothered me. Yeah, I said evenly. Round 2. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Be careful. I stiffened. Excuse me. You told me how it ended, he said. You said he made you feel small. My chest tightened. I had said that, in the heat of post-breakup bitterness, when I was hurt and defensive and needed someone to validate my side. That was a year ago, I said quietly. People don't change that much. That sentence lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. I didn't respond. Instead, I grabbed my drink and walked away. But the damage was done, because even if I didn't believe Daniel, a small, insecure part of me remembered those nights. The arguments. The feeling of shrinking instead of expanding. By the time I got home, my mood had shifted. And of course, Charles noticed immediately. He was sitting on my couch when I walked in. He'd used the spare key I gave him last week. We'd agreed it wasn't symbolic, just practical. Hey, he said, standing. You're quiet. I'm fine. Lie. He stepped closer, searching my face. What happened? I debated lying again. Then I remembered what we said about doing this differently. I ran into Daniel. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Oh, he said something. Charles didn't interrupt. He said people don't change that much. There it was. The air shifted instantly. Is that what you think? He asked carefully. I hated that question. Sometimes, I admitted. His shoulders squared slightly, not defensive, but bracing. And you? I asked. Do you think we're actually different? Or are we just on our best behavior? That landed harder than I intended. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a step back. Not away from me, just giving space. I can't undo how I made you feel, he said finally. I can't pretend that version of me didn't exist. Silence. But I can tell you that I know why I reacted the way I did, he continued. And I've done the work to not react like that anymore. And if we fight, I pressed. We will, he said calmly. That surprised me. We will disagree. We will get frustrated. But I won't try to win. And I won't try to corner you. The steadiness in his voice made my throat tighten. But you have to meet me halfway, he added. You don't get to run at the first sign of discomfort. That was fair. Painfully fair. I'm not looking for perfection, he said. I'm looking for partnership. I looked at him properly then. Not the version of him from a year ago. The one standing in front of me now. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't dismissive. He was accountable. Daniel only saw one version of us, he said quietly. So did our friends. So did we. He stepped closer again. But no one saw what we're doing right now. That hit. Because what we were doing right now was uncomfortable. Honest. Messy. Real. Do you feel small right now? He asked softly. I searched myself. No. I feel scared, I admitted. He nodded. Good. I blinked. Good. Scared means it matters. He reached for my hand, not gripping, not pulling, just holding. I'm not asking you to ignore what happened, he said. I'm asking you to judge me by what I do now. That's when it clicked. Change isn't loud. It's consistent. It's boring sometimes. It's showing up the same way on hard days as on easy ones. And in that moment, he was showing up. I don't want to lose you because of someone else's version of us, he said quietly. My chest ached. You won't, I said. But this time, I wasn't saying it to reassure him. I was saying it because I meant it. He stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me again. And this hug felt different from the first one outside the wine bar. Less uncertain, more grounded. I'm not perfect, he murmured against my hair. I'm not either. Good. I let out a small laugh against his chest. Stop saying good to everything. He smiled into my shoulder. Good. I rolled my eyes. But I held him tighter. Because here's the truth. Round 2 isn't about pretending round 1 didn't hurt. It's about proving you learned from it. And that night, for the first time, I stopped wondering if we were just pretending. The shift didn't happen in one big, cinematic moment. It happened quietly. On a Sunday, 3 weeks after the blind date. Charles was in my kitchen making coffee, barefoot, wearing one of my t-shirts like he'd been there for years. The sunlight was coming through the window, hitting him just right, and I had this sudden, almost disorienting thought. This feels normal, not chaotic, not fragile, not like something that could shatter if I breathed too hard. Just right. You're staring, he said without turning around. I'm evaluating your coffee-making skills. He snorted. They're superior. I walked up behind him, sliding my arms loosely around his waist. And here's the thing that used to feel risky, vulnerable, like I was giving him access to hurt me again. Now it just felt like choosing him. You okay? He asked, softer now. Yeah. He turned in my arms, searching my face like he always did when he thought I was holding something back. You look like you're thinking, he added. I am. Good or bad? I smiled faintly. Good. He waited. That patience still caught me off guard sometimes. I think I finally stopped bracing, I admitted. For what? For the part where this falls apart. His expression shifted, not offended, not defensive, just aware. He reached up, brushing his thumb lightly across my cheek. I can't promise we'll never mess up, he said quietly. I know, but I can promise I won't walk away when it gets hard. That was it. That was the difference. Last time, we walked away from tension. Now, we were walking into it together. I won't either, I said. And I meant it. Later that week, we told people. Not dramatically. Not with some big announcement. Just naturally. Mark found out first, obviously. I knew it. He said, grinning like he'd personally orchestrated the universe. You're insufferable, I told him. But are you happy? He asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. Not nervous happy. Not adrenaline happy. Not nostalgic happy. Stable happy. Then came the harder moment, running into Daniel again. This time, Charles was with me. The tension was subtle but undeniable. Daniel's eyes flicked between us. So it's official? He asked. Charles didn't tighten his grip on my hand. Didn't perform. He just looked at me briefly, like checking if I was okay, then nodded. Yeah, he said calmly. It is. No posturing. No insecurity. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt chosen. And I chose back. That night, back at my apartment, I asked him something that had been sitting in my chest for days. If we hadn't been set up, do you think we would have found our way back? He thought about it. Eventually, he said, You're that confident? He smiled slightly. No, I'm that stubborn. I laughed. Then his expression softened. But I'm really glad it happened the way it did. Why? Because we didn't collide again, he said. We walked into each other. That line stayed with me. We didn't crash this time. We chose. And that's the thing about second chances. They only work if you're not trying to recreate the first. We didn't try to be 19 again. We didn't try to relive the intensity that once defined us. We built something steadier, something intentional, something that didn't burn fast and bright, but slow and warm. A month after that blind date, we went back to the wine bar. Same corner table, same dim lighting. But this time, there was no shock, no disbelief, just us. To round 2, he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his. To doing it right. He reached across the table, lacing his fingers with mine. And this time, there was no hesitation, no fear that the past would swallow us. Just a quiet understanding that we had both grown into people capable of loving each other better. If you'd told me that night, sitting alone on my bed debating whether to cancel, that the blind date would be him. I would have panicked. If you told me we'd try again, I would have doubted it. But sometimes the person you thought you lost forever is just waiting for you to meet them as who you are now. And sometimes, the best love stories don't start with strangers. They start with someone you already loved once and finally learned how to love right.